Our guest this evening is Dornessa Harris, and she is a very strong advocate for gentrification. So tell us a little bit about yourself,
My
Dornessa.
name is Dornessa Harris, and I am a native of Washington, D.C., a product of the District of Columbia school system. I went to H.C. Woodson Senior High School. Afterwards, I went to Delaware State University, where I obtained a triple degree in administrative office management, business, and marketing.
I got
And
it
I
now. I found it now. Uh, she has a triple major in administrative office management, business administration, and marketing. She also earned an MBA from Delaware State. Throughout her professional career, Dornessa has trained numerous employees across various industries, including telecom, stock option management, customer service, and search engine optimization via the internet, in addition to teaching numerous grade levels and subjects within the DC public schools. With a heavy heart for displaced residents in gentrifying areas, she utilized her research and training skills to create www.survivethegword.com and began hosting seminars across the DMV to provide residents with the tools needed to survive gentrification. Let me just say this. In 2005, I had the opportunity to work in about 7 or 8 cities as far west as Phoenix, Arizona. And I didn't know what I was seeing then, but now that fast forward, I know what I am seeing. In the various cities that I worked in, I saw what I see as I go through DC. I saw cranes going up, older buildings being torn down, and black people being moved out. In fact, I think the city I was most traumatized in was Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where the racism was just beyond my wildest imagination. And the black people were being moved to the north, and it was so bad that the Klan came to downtown near the water, near the river, when there was going to be a hip hop concert, and they put flyers on people's cars saying, "Don't come and look at these niggas," and that's what the sign said. And I was so appalled that I think 2 or 3 weeks later, the national convention of the NAACP was going to be there, and I was like, "You mean to tell me this is what you gonna still have a convention there?" But at any rate, so what I was seeing in 2005 when I worked in those various cities, I am now seeing in DC, the moving out of black people and the re-entry of white people. So, Dornessa, take it from there and tell us, and since you've been a native Washingtonian and have continued to live in Washington, D.C., tell the listening audience about what you have seen over the years.
Okay, well, first let me go back a little bit in history. In D.C., this is not the only time that they've gentrified the district. What a lot of people don't know is that Georgetown was once an African-American community.
Okay.
That community was wiped out back in the 70s, where they brought in government agencies to say that some of the properties were unlivable, and they moved a lot of the black people out, or mostly all of the black people out. If you look at the website, survivethegword.com, you'll see a video there on YouTube with some of the residents who lived there as a child and remember their times of living in Georgetown. As for now, the same thing is happening, but it is happening in most major cities across the United States. The district has a little bit more success in allowing low-income residents to remain in their neighborhoods as they transform, because a lot of the churches that are here are doing subsidized housing.
Okay.
And because of those efforts by the church, some people still remain up in the Shaw neighborhood and things of that nature. So it's always very important to note that churches, though they are struggling, they are still maintaining housing for low-income residents in some of those predominantly white areas now. Mm-hmm. As well as D.C. has a progressive affordable housing policy. Many older working-class African Americans can remain in the city, which affords them to benefit from low crime as well as the attractiveness of the new neighborhoods. But there's a lot of resentment there because the character of the African American community is diminishing. Though a lot of
what do you mean by that? The character of the African American community is diminishing. What do you mean by that?
Meaning that a lot of the murals are gone. A lot of the things that we used to be able to do, like gather outside in the park and throw concerts, we can no longer do. For churches, a lot of the double parking that they used to allow on Sundays is no longer there. Churches can no longer park in a specific school anymore. The whole demographics of when you came into U Street, you knew that this was an African American community. That's no longer there. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. A lot of the newcomers have taken over these streets because they love the blackness. They're drawn by the blackness. And a lot of the developers actually market those areas like Shaw and U Street as black areas. And a lot of millennials are drawn to the African American community. However, they want their interest to be there, which is why you see they go out and they lobby for bike lanes and dog parks and upscale coffee shops. And so which is one of the primary reasons that everybody knows when you start to see those bike lanes develop in your city, you know that city is targeted for gentrification because those are what a lot of Caucasians want. They want the bike shop, they want the dog park, they want the yoga.
Well, let me ask you that. You said that they like the black communities, but if they like the black communities, it's a contradiction. You want the black community, but you don't want it to stay the way it was.
Exactly, and I've got to remember that the Wire TV show, so they dubbed it "Living the Wire." So, with that being said, they prefer to move into to the city because they consider it as being hip or cool. But they still want some of the things, some of their interest there, a lot of their interest there. Eventually, no matter how it is at this point in time, over time, if we don't begin to fight back as individuals, if we don't begin to secure our property, all blacks will be gone, just as in Georgetown. I think Georgetown now is about 5% black. Only a few people were able to retain their homes over the years, which is why I created Survive the G Word.
Mm. You know, a very prominent former D.C. church, Metropolitan Baptist Church, right there at 12th and R Northwest, they took flight from the city because they didn't have any parking, and they were using that schools next door to them or behind them. They were using their parking lot, their playground for parking. And then as the white folks started moving in, then they protested because they wanted to use that for soccer. When, it was not that as though Metropolitan was doing it for free. happen to know that Metropolitan was paying double-digit $1,000 to the school to be able to have their parishioners park there. So Metropolitan gave up, threw up their hands, and moved out of the city. It's amazing to me how they can do this. And I know at my church, Shiloh Baptist Church, that we have a parking lot, and they are ready to call the police and have people ticketed on the side if somebody stays on the side of the street too long. There's signs that say you can park from 7 to 2 p.m. or something. But the irony of it is that our parking lot is not locked. So those same white folks, and I'm saying it on the air, those same white folks will come and park in our parking lot and not give a doggone about, saying anything, not even ask permission. They just park up in the parking lot, taking up space for members' cars and not think anything of it. And when I see it, I call them out. Let me take your license plate number down, because if I was on the street and stayed 1 minute after 2 p.m., you'd be ready to call the police on me. So guess what I'm going to do? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the churches are trying and they're struggling. Do you know what happened to St. Philip Baptist Church that was right there on the corner of North Capitol and L Street? It's gone now. The building is still there, but it's boarded up, and I don't know what happened to it.
I can't actually per se what happened to that one particular church, but what I can say is that a lot of churches are struggling because as their congregation moves out and a Caucasian neighborhood moves in, a lot of the Caucasians don't choose that church as a place of worship. So the individuals, congregations who move out, they find themselves traveling into the city. When they come into the city, they don't have any place to park. If they don't have any place to park, they're getting tickets, they eventually leave the church. The church begins to struggle because their congregation begins to dwindle. And as their congregation began to dwindle, their finances began to dwindle. So that's just an overall perspective, and that's just one entity of how a lot of our churches are unfolding, especially in the Northwest, maybe area.
So continue on with, you started talking about how Georgetown used to be a black neighborhood. Was there another black neighborhood that was gentrified back in the 70s?
Yeah, Foggy Bottom.
Foggy Bottom, okay.
When I ran across the video that was on, well, actually, some older people started telling me how Georgetown had been gentrified. And so I began to do research. I ended up on YouTube, and I actually saw these people who actually had a life in Georgetown growing up as children, and I just became so drenched in finding out, what it was all about. And this is the same thing that is happening up in the D.C. area. And make no mistake, those of you who live in Maryland, especially PG, is coming to your area. When you begin to see a Planet Fitness, Harris Teeters, and yoga shops, so you're in that space, which is why I set out to start a movement to help people survive gentrification, to remain in your homes, because gentrification, in my belief, it starts and ends with the homeowners.
Okay. My co-host Sharif works for an entity with the D.C. government where they interface with people who are mentally ill. And some of the stories that I have heard, for example, he said, some of the, I call them carpetbaggers. Some of the carpetbaggers will harass the older black people. They call the police, and by the time the police get there, the carpetbagger, the person who is pressuring them to sell their home, is gone. And then they come back. So if the black person does that, the older black person does that a few times, then that turns into a mental health call, because we're coming here and there's nobody knocking on your door, there's nobody bothering you, and then that turns into, you need to come in for an evaluation. And I know I have heard that there are people who were taken in, they're doing all kinds of things. I know someone whose house has repeatedly been vandalized by, and the neighbors say, by white folks to discourage her so that she won't, she was renovating her house, but to be discouraged so that she won't, get back into her house. So, there's all kind of trickery. So continue on, Sister Dornessa.
I've heard of a lot of things like that as well. The bottom line to it is that if you own property, no matter where you own your property, you have got to get a living trust.
A living trust. Okay.
A living trust. If you are deemed insane or mentally challenged, even if you go into a mental institution, there's nothing that they can do with your property if you have it in a living trust and your executor of your estate is taking care of your property while you are in that mental institution. If I go back again to Georgetown, which is illegal now, when those white folks moved into Georgetown, within their deed or trust, leaving their house to a trust, they put in there that it couldn't be sold to anybody who wasn't a Caucasian, which is illegal now. You can determine what you want done with your house while you're in your stable mind. Whereas right now, you have 82% of Americans who do not have a living trust. Okay? That is one of the key essential pieces of paper that we can have as people in general. And no matter what happens to you in life, whatever you write in that trust is what will happen to your home. as long as the taxes are paid, and you have an executor to ensure that your house is paid off.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think, well, if they only have one child, I have one child, so my house is going to automatically go to that child. It doesn't work like that.
Really?
No, it does not. Every single piece of property in the United States of America, if you do not have a living trust on that piece of property, that property has to go through the probate process.
Okay.
If it goes through the probate process, the judge determines what happens to your property because, first of all, everything that you owe has to be paid.
Mm-hmm.
So if you owe a hospital bill, the hospital bill has to be paid. If you owe a car note and they file, that car note has to be paid. But if you have a living trust,
the house can't be touched. Okay.
So your house goes to whom you leave it to in the trust.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that our people don't know. So if you have one child, that one child has to pay the probate costs. They have to pay. They have to pay all fees that are associated with the probate process.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you spend a couple of $100s now, it will negate thousands of dollars later.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you made the statement a few minutes earlier that gentrification lies at the feet of black folks.
Property owners.
Black property or property owners, period. But in a black neighborhood, it's with the black folks.
Right.
Tell us why that is.
The reason why that is because, one, we don't plan properly for our estate. So reverting back to the probate process, once it ends up in the probate process, your house could go for $7,000 to $10,000, and your kids don't know the process of buying it or trying to pay for it, and developers come in to the probate process and they get your home. Another is taxes on the house. A lot of times we don't know. If I have a house, a 3-bedroom house with two baths and a half, or I'm just saying that in general, mm-hmm. and the house next door has the same thing. They were the exact same houses over the years, but now this house, then we developed. They dig the basement out. They have a deck. Now it's central air. But then when you get your tax bill has gone up tremendously based on the sale of that house and a couple of more houses that they renovated. No, that's not how it works. That's how it works because you allow it to work.
Okay.
Because this house has now been renovated, it has a basement, it has a deck, it is now central air. This house is no longer comparable to your house.
Right.
So if it's no longer comparable to your house, they can't raise your taxes based on that house. So you have to go through the appeals process.
Okay.
To keep your taxes lower. Don't get pushed out because you don't fight back. Does that make sense?
Oh, it absolutely does. How many black folks know this?
That is exactly why I created Survivor G-Word, to begin to financially educate people on some of their options.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know, you don't do. And if you just don't do, then you get taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm. 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 There was where I actually first met you was as a part of a protest for the Black Power movement, protesting in front of some property where the developers had torn down a strip mall on 8th Street Northeast. Sister Dornessa was also a part of did a presentation at the emergency summit back in July about this gentrification. It is scary to me as I have gone through various parts of the district, and I said it some months ago that when I first came to D.C., it was called Chocolate City, and I came in the late 90s, and then Joe Madison referred to it as it's Chocolate Chip City, and now at some areas I was with someone in Southwest, near the part of Southwest is near the treatment facility, DC treatment facility, and I saw white folks walking freely up and down the streets, like off of South Capitol Street. I think that's South Capitol Street. And I was just amazed at how we do not, we, sometimes it's the lack of information, but sometimes I don't know what it is that we don't get conscious until we don't realize what is happening.
Until it's almost too late.
Yeah, until it's almost too late. I have heard stories of where families, like multi generations, have grown up in a big house, and the matriarch dies, and the children have to make a decision about what they're going to do with the house, even maybe there were maybe one or two children that still lived in the house while others moved away, and there was a family or a legal battle ensued because some of the children wanted to sell the property and others did not. Have you come across that, and have you been able to persuade any families or any homeowners not to sell their property?
Let me say this.
Mm-hmm.
Survive the G word for me is not me telling you don't sell your home.
Okay.
I mean, survive the G word for me is if you want to sell your home, then by all means do so, but don't be taken advantage of. There was a friend of mine had some friends who had a house up near the Navy Yard. The house was worth about $200,000 then. They kept knocking on their doors. Mm-hmm. The house went up. They got all the way up to $700,000. My friend's friend sold the house for $700,000. Within a year, the house was on the market for $2.2 million.
What?
Yes. So what I'm saying is, if you have a home in the district or wherever, I'm not going to tell you don't sell your house. I'm going to tell you to make your own decisions. But if you decide to live in your house, I'm going to show you tips that you can do or that you can use to stay in your house. But if you want to sell your house, you renovate it and you reap the benefits from it. Why would your family or you have your house for so many years only to sell and then somebody else capitalize the most on it within a year?
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. And what you were just talking about is what I like to call tangled titles. When, again, we don't have our plans in order, so therefore our kids end up having to take the house through probate. I don't care if you have a long-lost relative who no longer associates with the family. You have to locate that relative, and as long as that process takes, you have to continue to pay the probate fee, the attorney fee, as you speak out or you look for that family member.
Wait a minute. Back. Okay, so you said so say there's 5 children, and one is off in Borneo somewhere, and 4 of the children want to sell the property. They cannot sell the property until they locate child number 5 in Borneo. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
When it comes to the probate process, in addition to that, let's say one of the siblings or 2 of the siblings died, and let's say one has 3 kids, the other has 4 kids. Mm-hmm. The remaining siblings and all those 7 kids have got to come to the same agreement on your house. And in the process, as Black folks, what we end up doing is losing that house to a probate sale, because it goes on for years and years and years, and the cost or the value of the estate diminishes because all these fees are coming out of the estate while my kids and my grandkids are fighting. Mm-hmm. So in order to alleviate all that is simply spend a few $100s and get a living trust. And exactly what you want done with that house will be done. This will cut out all of the arguing, all of the bickering, and it will go exactly as you say. If all of your kids have a home already, mm-hmm. if everybody already has a home and all of your kids are set up, take out the living trust and deed your house to your church and put in the stipulations what you want the church to do with your house. It's for subsidized housing, or to sell, or maybe pay your kids off. Whatever you want to be done with your house in a living trust, you can put there.
Wow. And so you would say that a living trust supersedes a will?
A will is simply being a little bit better of dying intestate, which is without a will.
Mm-hmm.
A will is simply instruction. It tells the judge what you want to happen with your estate, what your desires are. So the judge would take that in consideration.
Mm-hmm.
However, the judge also has to take in consideration all the debt that you still have. And all of those debts are paid off first. And then the judge will follow your instructions on the will if there's still an estate left after all of your debts are paid off.
Okay.
But if you have a living trust, that living trust supersedes all of that.
Now, in your workshop, and we're gonna ask you to give the listening audience your upcoming workshop information. But in your workshop, do you have or recommend attorneys who could draft these living trusts for people? Is that a part of your workshop?
Definitely. The company that I would tell any and everybody to go to would be a company that I like to use, because they use a template where you just go in and you type in what you want yourself through the website.
Mm-hmm.
Because a living trust begins at $2,500 and can go up to as much as $5,000.
Okay.
Whereas if you have and this is what the wealthy use, but if you have a firm that does it by template, it cuts the cost down dramatically to about $400 or $500.
Okay.
So what I did was, whatever I give you in the workshop,
Mm-hmm.
you can bet it's going to be the lowest price available that still provides quality services.
It hurts my heart to see how we are being pushed out.
Right, and just to go back a little bit
Mm-hmm.
on a question that you asked me in regards to it begins with the homeowners.
Mm-hmm.
If, in fact, everybody fights back because they're still in their neighborhoods and the taxes are not gone up yet, if everybody fights back and they filed an appeal on their property taxes,
Mm-hmm.
and those appeals are granted. Now, you can fight an appeal all the way up to the Supreme Court, and it costs you absolutely nothing out of your pocket.
Oh, really?
Simply because lawyers or consulting firms take your project on a contingency basis, whereas they are paid anywhere from 33 to 50% of your savings.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to continue your fight if they don't think you can win. And so if they think you can win, they're going to fight it for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then every year after that, all of the savings will remain in your pocket. And I say it begins with the homeowner, because if everybody gets together on your block and they're filing these appeals and they're winning, those property taxes are not going to go up substantially. And although, regardless of how many big buildings or how many stores they put in there, because you filed that appeal, your taxes remain low on your house, and it will not go up unless you drastically change or you do some renovating to your house. That's when your taxes will actually change once you file that appeal.
Do you think, and this is a political question, do you think that people are getting paid off by the developers, people in the government are getting paid off to allow these taxes to go up so that it squeezes people out?
No question.
Oh, okay.
No question.
I thought you'd be afraid to answer that.
No question. Do I have proof? No, I don't have proof. But yeah, I definitely think that,
Mm-hmm.
as well as who the developers are coming into the neighborhood to do the redevelopment.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this. I was at a ANC meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and they had developers that came in there and spoke. And when they came in there and they spoke, they were asking the people, what do you want in the neighborhood, because we're developing this part here. What do you want to see? There's people like, oh, I want to see a dime, and the black people are getting all excited. And when I spoke, I finally had to speak to tell them, guys, are you really understanding what they're asking you? They're asking you what type of services you want in the neighborhood, but it's not for you. It's for the people that they're going to bring into the neighborhood after you.
There you go.
And the developers looked at me
like they could strangle you.
Exactly, because they were talking about affordable housing and things of that nature. And so I raised the question, well, what's your affordable housing?
Uh-huh.
They said it'll be affordable for everybody. What is the gross income? They said 50,000. There's another video on the website, on our website, about Berry Farms, and it tells you within that video that the median income of African Americans in the District of Columbia is 34,000. So if it's 34,000 and the affordable housing that they're building is a minimum of 50,000, where do the black people go? Are they going to qualify? No, they're not.
You know, our guest from a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Sherman was saying that there are public housing that may have 2 or 3 or 4 bedrooms, and she said that it is not unusual for people to get displaced and told, we're going to renovate this, and you will not be able to, and you'll be able to come back. But in reality, they take that 3 or 4 bedroom apartment and cut it up into a bunch of 1 bedroom or studio condos, and then you don't have an opportunity to get back. Dr. Sherman also said this, mentioned this, and I wanted to see if you had heard the same thing, that if you have a federal housing voucher, that if you can't get housing within 30 days, that you lose that voucher, and that you have to, something about if you pay your rent or can't pay your rent within 30 days. There was a 30-day caveat to it if you have a public housing voucher in the district, and you will not be able to use it. So have you heard anything like that?
I have not heard anything in regards to that. I primarily, everybody has their different segments of gentrification that they deal with. Mm-hmm. I focus primarily on the homeowner and helping individuals in subsidized housing build their income. Those are the areas that I concentrate on. I don't know the particulars of state legislation when it comes to, or government legislation when it comes to Section 8 and things of that nature. Okay. I'm not focused on that. I am focused primarily on becoming self-sufficient. I believe that if we work together as a unit, we can all uplift ourselves together in one unified effort. So I don't focus on government regulations for subsidized housing.
I know we have to be vigilant. I know we have to stay woke. But it seems like, and I had this discussion with my co-host Sharif, the people who contact us, the people who request help, sometimes it's almost overwhelming. It's daunting because black folks are being just taken advantage of from one end to the other, and unless you have a commitment, or unless this is a divine assignment, you can just drop out of the game. You can really drop out of the game. So would you say that this is your passion, this is your assignment, this is your divine assignment to educate people about their home ownership and all of that? How long have you been doing this?
I would definitely say yes. And the reason why I would say yes, this is my assignment, it is because I can go online and do a little bit of research on one subject, and something else will pop up. And I'll say, oh my goodness, this needs to be in my presentation. Mm-hmm. And it's like everything just falls into place. 2 weeks ago, and this was not in my program, mm-hmm. but it was called the Step Up in Basis.
The who?
The Step Up in Basis. Okay, the Step Up in Basis is a IRS tax code that benefits married couples, and I had no idea that existed. So individuals say, well, I'm married, and when I pass on, my portion of the house is going to automatically go to my husband, or going to go to my wife. Yeah, but what the Step Up in Basis does, it it stops your spouse from having to pay taxes. Let's say you have a big old house and you pass away, and your spouse inherits your part of your home. Then your spouse say, hey, this house is too big for me. I don't need it anymore. All the kids are gone. I'm just going to sell it and move into a condominium or something like that. Well, because you didn't hold, you held it in joint tenancy. When one person dies, the other one gets it. Your spouse now has to pay capital gains tax on your portion of the house that was stepped up. Meaning, so if you bought it at $20,000, now it's worth $200,000. Your spouse now has to pay taxes on $180,000 of the house.
Wow.
Because you didn't hold it in trust. A living trust creates community property ownership. So therefore, you both own it equally. So when you pass on, guess how much taxes your spouse will have to pay because you held it in community property in the trust? There's no capital gains tax.
Okay.
And most married couples don't know that. They say, well, he's just going to get, yeah, but you're still talking about, okay, if it's a $200,000 house or $500,000 house, now they have to pay capital gains taxes on it because you held it in joint tenancy, and now they have a capital gains as opposed to holding it in community property through a living trust.
There is so much to home ownership, not just the maintenance of it, not just the paying of the taxes, but also all these intricacies that you're talking about. So, to the listening audience, Sister Dornessa has a wonderful workshop. Tell the listening audience about when your next workshop is.
The next workshop is actually tomorrow.
Okay.
And that is at 2:00 at the Dorothy Heights Benning Road Library on Benning Road. My workshop covers how to prepare for gentrification as moving into your neighborhood, how to protect your home against the spikes in property taxes, how to save your home for your heirs. A will is not enough. You need to avoid the probate process for your heirs, as well as avoid capital gains tax or inheritance taxes on specific things. In addition, we'll talk a little bit about how you can actually increase your income. You know, a lot of those houses up on Morton Street, up in 14th Street, a lot of those people simply renovated their homes and split them up in little rooms or whatever. They kept their homes, and now they're making like anywhere from $4,000 to $8,000 renting out rooms in those homes. So if your kids are all grown and gone out, and you have a house in the district and create a second income from it. But with that, you have to have a good credit score so you can take out the loans to do the construction on those homes. We're going to teach you how to do that or show you how to do that as well. So there are a lot of things that go on within our seminar, and I can't go into everything specifically, but we touch on them.
Wow. It's there really is we really need this. We really need this. Again, Sister Dornessa's presentation is tomorrow, 2 p.m. at the Dorothy Heights Benning Neighborhood Library at 3935 Benning Road Northeast in the district. Sister Dornessa, closing comments, closing thoughts as we wrap up.
My closing thoughts or comments is, if anyone owns property anywhere, you need to live in trust. You need the information that the seminar provides. So I ask you find a way to get to the Benning Road Library. Those of you who are in different states, I am working on a website that will be general, a portion of the website that will be general so that you can view it in other states as well.
Okay. The website again is survivethegword.com, Surviving Gentrification Through Financial Education. We thank you so much, Sister Dornessa Harris, for coming on the broadcast and educating us. One of the things that Freedom Fighters tries to do is to educate people and to help people be aware of things that affect black people across the spectrum. Thank you so much for coming on, and you have regular workshops once a month, right?
Yeah, you can always, when you go onto the survivethegword.com, you can always see our upcoming seminars that are open to everyone.
All right. Again, Sister Dornessa Harris, founder and advocate, housing advocate, freedom fighter, Survive the G Word. Thank you so much, and I will hopefully see you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you to the listening audience. Good night.